ready to go. We got a lot to talk about today. It's been a while, but I'm back. Let's get straight into the show. Let's get it.
Here's Edwards with the lead. Donovan Edwards down the sideline. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown, Michigan. The stop.
The play action. Bennett looks down the middle. McConkey's wide open. Touchdown, Dogs.
As a part of the Loudmouth Sports network of videos here, I am Basch, aka, or really my name is Colin Baschnagel, aka Basch. A lot of people just call me Basch. That's a little bit of an older nickname. But with that being said, I'm just going to give a little bit of a plug to the guys over at Loudmouth Sports. But they've been putting in a lot more work than me, especially as of late, with how busy I've been. So make sure you guys check out Loudmouth CFB, Loudmouth Weekly, and everything that they do on the main channel. The main channel, Loudmouth Sports. In case you need to spell it, it's in the description below. Also, you can check out my TikTok in the description below, Basch Ellison. It's very, very simple, Basch Ellison, just the way that we had it. What's up, Cam? How we doing, Bosk? That's a throwback right there. Let's talk about Texas. Now, I specifically want to talk about Quinn Ewers versus Arch, but we're going to talk about the rest of the team first and just get straight into it. Now, we know that Texas is going to be a lot better on the offensive line. They brought in all this talent last year. They've had a bunch of talent coming in as of late, and now it's starting to really click on the offensive line, it seems like. And they have the wide receivers to really do stuff because guess what? They bring back Xavier Worthy. They bring in A.D. Mitchell. And they bring back Isaiah Nair, who didn't even play at all last year. They bring in a freshman that can play immediately in Jonte Cook, and he kind of proved that. Casey Kane, Jordan Whittington, guys that can absolutely be a stud. Now, I'm not sold on what they have at the tight end position. A lot of Texas fans are high on Jatavian Sanders. I am personally not. You have to show me it for me to believe it if you're Sanders. So I'm going to hold my breath on that. But the offensive line is going to be better no matter what you do with the running back room with, Jonathan Brooks, Cedric Baxter, Jaden Blue. It doesn't matter. You're going to have a solid running back core. And if the offensive line is blocking better up front, that's a good thing right there. And defensively, they have a lot of confidence in their experience. And they also expect a kid like Anthony Hill to come in and make an immediate impact. Jalen Catalon comes in off of the injury to Arkansas. You got to remember, a huge reason why Arkansas's pass defense was so poor last year was because Jalen Catalon got hurt. He's a really big-time, underrated transfer pickup for the Texas Longhorns and for, anybody out there that's been talking about the transfer portal in the offseason. That's one of those that go under the radar that we're going to be talking about 3 or 4 games. I mean, that'll certainly be something talked about in the Alabama game. So I like where the defense is at. And the question really on this team is quarterback. But there really isn't a question because Sark came out. He told you Quinn Ewers is their starter and Arch is third string, by the way. Malik Murphy also looked like a stud. He could probably start at least 50% of Power 5 schools at this very moment. He's super talented. And you didn't really see Arch Manning flash. You didn't really see Arch Manning. And look, this could be confirmation bias for people like me who say that Arch Manning was ranked too high just because of his name. He still, to me, was certainly a blue chip quarterback, but a top 50 player in this last class. So don't get it twisted. There's promise there, but I did not like what I saw from Arch Manning. And you're talking about an Arch versus Quinn dynamic here, where really it's just Arch versus the principle of Quinn starting this year and him not going to get the shot this year because he's going to be a third string behind Malik Murphy. A lot of people are talking about him transferring, and in the era of transfer portal, I could see it, but I don't believe it with the Manning family. I believe that they're going to have Arch Manning stick this out, be tough with it, and at the very least, get a degree at Texas. That's what I believe is going to happen. But then again, this is the kid who lost his ID, what, 3 times? 3 times in the matter of like a week. So, yeah, I think he hasn't lost his ID in a while. So I think we should be good. What's going on with the USC Trojans here? All right. So we know Caleb Williams is a stud, and we know that he's going to be the favorite to win the Heisman. He probably has the best chance since Tim Tebow to win 2 Heismans. And certainly he might be the first to do it, and the only one to do it since Archie Griffin, and the only one outside of Archie Griffin in the mid-70s. Now, again, tight end is a concern. You bring in Deuce Robinson, but he's going to be focused on baseball as well, and he's coming in late. I'm not really sure how good you're going to be able to get Deuce Robinson early. So you're looking at Luke McCree, who can be decent for you, but overall, that tight end room leaves a lot to be desired. But that offensive line is definitely upgraded and decent. They have a solid running back room with, a handful of guys, and Barlow and Lloyd, and the guy who's going to get the bulk of the carries, Austin Jones, who played really well down the stretch for them last year. Mario Williams looks like a stud. Mario Williams last year, I thought, emerged to be better by season end. Like I said, he would be by season end. Mario Williams was going to be USC's best receiver, not Jordan Addison. That happened to be the case. Regardless of opt-out or anything like that. So Mario Williams is definitely going to explode onto the scene this year, and it certainly helps that they bring in a guy like Dorian Singer, because I believe their depth at wide receiver is not what it was. They also have Zachariah Branch coming in as a true freshman. I like him, but a guy I really like who gets a little bit underrated that's completely, a complete grinder is Taj Washington. He's a stud. He showed up in big moments last year. He was able to play very tough as kind of a wide receiver 4 type of thing, and they spread the ball around to all their wide receivers. And I think there's a significant role in this offense for a guy like Taj Washington this year. Moving to the defense, and the only thing that I can give you that I like about them is they have a lot of experience. Is that necessarily a great thing, though? Because we're talking about a team that last year was just abysmal, specifically in their last couple of games and down the stretch. And when they really needed not to be horrible, they were horrible. And defensive depth is also a concern for sure. And I just don't see how they get that improvement, right? I mean, you're talking about a true freshman in Tackett Curtis and a true freshman in Sam Green being in the 2 deep in your front 7. That's a problem. Neither of those kids are uber talented enough to put themselves immediately into the 2 deep of an elite defense. Tackett Curtis was recruited by Ohio State. I guarantee you Tackett Curtis was not going to see the field, which might have been a reason why Alex Grinch was able to take him from Ohio State. But Tackett Curtis was not going to sniff the 2 deep, let alone be in it. And Tackett Curtis is 100% going to be in it, and so will Sam Green. So now I'm looking at this USC roster with a lot of concern on defense because, again, it's a piece together type of thing. And sorry about that. I was wiping something off my phone because my phone's being weird. I really just – this direction that the USC defense is going down is very concerning. And I don't know, man. I really hope that USC can get this defensive issue figured out, but that's what held them back last year, and that's what's going to hold them back this year. That's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on to the little drama. We're going to talk a lot more about Miami, but we're going to start with the TVD and Alabama drama. First off, if the rumors are true and Tommy Rees was contacting Tyler Van Dyke, what are we doing, NCAA? Jordan Addison last year. You got Tyler Van Dyke now, and you've had so many more different – Sam Hartman is one of them. So many instances of just a complete tampering, and they don't even have to hide it. I'm not sure, by the way. I think they do play Utah, but I'm not positive about that. You don't even need to hide it. At all. You don't even need to try to hide it. Just like if the rumor's out there, they're not going to look into it at all. And that's that's just the truth. So let's move away from the tampering thing. I'm going to tell you what this is all about. JV and Cohen. It's all about JV and Cohen. It's all about you guys tampered with an offensive lineman. We're going to try to get back at you and target your quarterback. He might not even be our starter. I have no idea if he's any good. But we're going to send a flare out there to say, hey, Tyler, if you want to come to Alabama, we got a spot for you right here. I don't think Tyler Van Dyke's going to leave Miami. I think he's going to stick it out. I think he's going to trust the process with Mario Cristobal and the new offensive coordinator that loves to throw it around the yard. But I'm a little bit concerned here if I'm Miami. And, you're talking about a situation where Saban versus Cristobal is like you see, and this is a good point that Josh Pate brought up about Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban. Or no, sorry, it was Zach Smith, I think. Lane Kiffin has the utmost respect for Saban to the point where he just wants to put a product out on the field that impresses Coach Saban. Mario Cristobal has been trying to battle him in recruiting, and things get dirty when you try to battle in recruiting. And Saban's staff and Cristobal's staff have been at each other for years. It's just for a couple of kids here and there. While he's all the way up here in Oregon. Nick Saban's planted down here in the center of the universe, by the way, in the center of the college football universe in Alabama. Now you're talking about being in the same region, two historic programs, one in Miami that has a brief history, but a history nonetheless that their fans and their coaches and players, former players, are very proud of. Saban feels like he has built something at Alabama, and he has every reason to believe this, by the way. He has built something at Alabama that's way better than what Miami has ever had. And he is just saying, all right, you played dirty with me, Mario. We're going to play dirty with you, and we're the better program. And in this particular battle, I don't think it's going to work. But anytime that Alabama wants a player from Miami, send up the flare. Let Tommy Rees talk to you. So does this really give Miami concern? Well, let's talk about their future. Well, let's talk about their current roster first off. Their current roster confuses me. Their current roster concerns me. They have Henry Parrish. They bring in Mark Fletcher, two running backs that could probably make an impact right away, but specifically having Henry Parrish. They're going to throw the ball around the yard a lot. And I'm not sure if they really have wide receivers. They bring back Xavier Restrepo. But outside of that, a lot of no names, or not, I shouldn't say no names, not to be disrespectful, but a lot of guys who haven't proven it on the collegiate field. For those of you out there that are trying to tell me that Miami this year is going to be significantly better than last year, please tell me why. Because they brought in a coordinator from Houston that wasn't even that good at Houston anyway, running Dana's offense. I'm sorry. They're in a believe when I see it mode, just like Florida State was last year, honestly. And hey, they could prove me wrong, but I'm not going to buy into them. Now, recruiting. This is where the concern starts to linger here. Miami on the recruiting trail right now for the 2024 class, and this is, by the way, after wrapping up a top 6 class, I believe it was. It could have been even top 5. I can't remember. But Miami right now is sitting, with the 7 commits all the way down at 22. Not a horrible spot. You got plenty of room to grow. Their average is not great. But I think the biggest thing that we need to talk about when it comes to Miami is the fact that they keep swinging and missing on their quarterbacks. I mean, think about this for just a second, guys. Think about this. They had number 8 overall class, which is good. I mean, that's exactly what you want. please tell me the quarterbacks that they brought in last year. First off, wasn't who they exactly wanted. It was Emory Williams, who's enrolled now, and it was not Jaden Rashada, who they had targeted very, very heavily. They got into some of these battles for some of these quarterbacks last year, and they didn't win them. This year, what is happening? They're getting into these battles with these quarterbacks this year. They ain't winning them. They were right there with the Aaron Nolan sweepstakes. They were right there with multiple different high-ranking quarterbacks this season. They have not found their guy in the Mario Cristobal era. That is a concern. That is a concern when you're talking about trying to rebuild a program back up to prominence. Is there any reason to believe that this Miami team who lost out on DJ Lagway, who lost out on Aaron Nolan, who lost out on a guy that they pursued, I believe they pursued Jake Merklinger. I certainly know that they've pursued more, multiple others. I was about to say. These guys don't know what they're doing right now at the quarterback position. And that's the lifeblood of this sport, is it not? The quarterback position is where you win. Getting a high-ranking blue-chip quarterback is how you win. Can you find something in Emory Williams? Sure, but he's not as sure of a thing. And if you find something in Emory Williams, what's going to even better what you're going to find in Emory Williams is making him compete for the job. A lot of people keep expressing concern about Florida's recruiting because they missed out on Jaden Rashada, essentially, because he left. Why is nobody talking about Miami's concerns in recruiting? Florida has DJ Lagway. Just because Florida's quarterback position at this moment is not as solidified as Miami's with Tyler Van Dyke, it does not mean that they're in a better spot in the future. It doesn't. They're in a better spot for 2023 at the quarterback position, that's for sure. But when you talk about Florida, what do they have? Well, they got a guy like DJ Lagway coming in. Okay. What do you have with Miami? A developmental project with Emory Williams after you had Garcia transfer off, who was a talented kid, transfer off to Missouri. Now you got Tyler Van Dyke for a year. The future is concerning because Florida, they missed out 2023, okay? They ended up getting Jaden Rashada, and then Rashada left and went to Arizona State. A lot of people forget that Rashada went to Arizona State, by the way. Florida has their guy, and he's going to stay committed is what it looks like. Miami has no idea who their guy is. Miami went to the backup of backup options. No disrespect to Emory Williams. Hope for nothing but the best. But Miami has some serious concerns at this moment. All right, just talking about the Ohio State spring game real quick. You know I'm an Ohio State fan. Got to talk about it a little bit. Really like what I saw from the linebackers that played because Steele Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg didn't play. CJ Hicks was outstanding. Cody Simon was outstanding, and Gabe Powers was really outstanding as well. And that surprised me as a guy who knows him very well. I thought it'd be a little bit more developmental, and he's probably going to sniff the two deep. He's probably going to get some playing time for sure, but he's not going to make an immediate impacts as a sophomore. And that's the only criticism I've really ever had for Gabe Powers is it'll take a couple of years for him, but he could be a good player. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. He's got the ability, but it'll take a couple of years with him to get him right to that college football adjusted amount. See, and I had a little bit of concern about this with CJ Hicks, but going to an Archbishop Alter, a private school that's a lot smaller than a football town like Marysville is, and a football town that loves football and is a big town, has a lot of population, but they haven't produced that high Division I prospect. I mean, it was a huge deal when a guy by the name of Thomas Rush went to Minnesota as a 3-star recruit. And he played pretty solid in his years at Minnesota. He was a starter for them this past year, and now he's moving on to the next part of his life. It was a huge deal when some linebacker from Akron made an NFL roster and won 2 Super Bowls on that NFL team with the Giants. Huge deal. Absolutely massive deal in that town. I figured that being the golden child for a couple of years, this kid who has been receiving offers since the start of his sophomore year and been talking to big-time coaches since the start of his sophomore year, I thought that would be a lot for this kid to handle because it's a lot for a normal kid to handle. And to his family, parents, and the kid, seems like it's just we're moving on to that part of our life. The second that he left and early enrolled last winter, we're moving on. And that can be tough for any kid in a small town, but the small town is actually a big town, if you know what I mean. It's like a small town feel, big town though, because it's a lot of people and a lot of people know who you are. And football is such a huge deal. And you see it so much in a state like Georgia. You see it so much in a state like Florida, in a state like Texas, where you get these small towns, but they still have a lot of people and they finally produce that blue chip, high-ranked, borderline 5-star recruit, and everybody surrounds themselves with him. And a lot of kids that are in that position, it's a lot for them to handle, and they have to come back down to earth after being everything in high school. They have to realize they're just, needing to be, they matter to their coaches, and they matter to the program, to the school, but you are not the it anymore when you're at Ohio State. And the kid has handled it great, and he looked great last Saturday. So props to him. Just a little bit of a props. Talking, though, about Ohio State's spring game, the one concern you could take away is the O-line. A lot of people might talk about Kyle McCord not performing well. Look, Justin Fields threw like 4 for 13 in his first spring game. I'm not concerned, especially because it didn't really look horrible for Kyle McCord. He had a couple of passes that probably should have been picked. But I have a feeling that that's more because the defense is improving. And this Ohio State defense looks different than they have, but they looked different last year too. So you guys are going to say, well, why was Ohio State not better last year? And I'm going to say, not better? They were way better. Doesn't mean they were where they needed to be. I never really said last year that they were good enough to win a championship. Let's put it that way. That Georgia game proved that they were good enough, that they were one play away to win a championship. You don't have to be elite. You just have to be good and solid. Where Ohio State lacked last year was kind of struggling with an identity on defense, I feel like. And I feel like Jim Knowles is starting to find that with the personnel he has. I mean, almost everybody's coming back on that defense. You only essentially lose Rocket Hickman, and everybody else is back. I mean, JTT is back. Zach Harrison's gone too, so I'll give you that. JTT is back. Jack Sawyer's back. You got Mike Hall. You got Ty Hamilton, Tyleek Williams. You have all of your best 3 linebackers from last year back. And then you have these 2 young guys in Gabe Powers and CJ Hicks who are really developing into good players. Secondary, pretty much back. You lose J.K. Johnson. You lose Cameron Brown. You replace them with an all-American all-conference SEC as a freshman corner in Davison Igbinosun, who's been absolutely amazing. And you bring back your best corner anyway. Jordan Hancock played well in moments. Jair Brown played well as also. And Jermaine Matthews has had a great spring too. Let's not forget about that. And then Cameron Martinez has played well. I'm hoping that he's actually – I'm starting to rethink this thing because a lot of Ohio State fans go against Cameron Martinez, and I'm here telling you right now, I really hope that Cameron Martinez is able to be a good, solid starter for Ohio State because I'm really rooting for him. And he's a guy that if his ceiling is met with his athleticism and his skill, he's going to be a really, really good player, especially out of that slot. But I think the safety position, having the depth that they have, is really what sticks out about this team. I mean, we saw Sonny Styles against Georgia play amazing in his limited snaps. Josh Proctor, as a 6-year senior, is going to have to hold off the young guy And that pressure on Josh Proctor is going to make him a better player. For those in the Ohio State media that are talking about Josh Proctor and such vitriol and like, oh, he shouldn't be playing at all. I don't know why he even came back. Dude, shut up. Okay. This competition from behind him with Sonny Styles and Kai Stokes is going to make him better. Speaking of, you got Lathan Ransom back, and for the majority of the season, he played really well. Those last 3 games, he struggled. He's got to correct it. But I liked what I saw from Lathan Ransom. Now, where you get concerns is the O-line, guys. The O-line. What is going on? I've heard rumors that they're going to look to the portal for a tackle. That's concerning. It really is concerning. You bring in a guy like Vic Cutler, who's repping at center, and it looks like he's going to be the backup center to Carson Hinsman. And it looks like the interior is very solidified. Carson Hinsman has taken that step needed, and he's going to be really good at center. Guards, you got Matt Jones. You got Donovan Jackson, who's probably the best interior offensive lineman in all of college football. Your goal is to get the best 5 out there, though. Is that best 5 Josh Fryer and a guy like Enoch Vimahi? Or is it Tegra Shabola or Zed Mihalski? Or do you have to go find that 5th guy in the portal? I don't know. There's multiple tackles in the portal. I heard links to that transfer who was playing out of position out of Texas A&M, a 6'7" kid who was playing center, despite the fact that he's a natural tackle. I don't know. But I have heard rumors that they're going to look to the portal. And I guess time will tell with that. Buckeye blitz in recruiting. They got a recent commitment. I'll announce that when we get to that. They got a recent commitment, though, and that's a good thing. And that's something the Ohio State fans are very happy about. I know that for a fact, and, we're going to hear a lot about that. But Ohio State in recruiting, they also got a guy in they got a guy in Mylan Graham just a little bit ago that you guys remember them getting, and that really set Ohio State up for this type of success with Mylan Graham and James Peoples essentially happening back to back. But everybody said, "Oh, just toughen up. I guess offense only, right?" Well, then they go and get Peyton Pierce, and they only got 2 commitments out of the 12 on the defensive side of the ball. But Peyton Pierce looks to me like he's probably underrated simply because of the fact that he was injured most of his junior season. And I guess we'll see. But, man, how he played as a sophomore, he was an absolute stud. They bring in Max LeBlanc. LeBlanc is a tight end, a high 4-star tight end as well from Baylor School. And then they follow it up with this recent commitment that I'll tell you about. Ohio State has all the momentum in recruiting. Now, hopefully the ATV accident that Heartline had, which, by the way, looked horrible. So thank goodness he's all right. But it sounds like, they're going to continue. And now they're number 1 in recruiting. Will they finish that way? I don't think so, but they will finish top 3. It will be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. A lot of people, by the way, say that always happens. That has only happened like once in the modern recruiting area where those 3 schools were the top 3. Usually you can find that 2 of those 3 schools are there. But when I said that in a group, I got one of 2 things. Ohio State is going to fall off in recruiting. The recruits see it, and you got to start recruiting defense. And I saw the other thing. Well, that's always the top 3. It's not. Generally speaking, somebody else usually throws their hat in the ring. Are they usually all 3 towards the top? Sure. Yeah, I'm going to give you that. But I'm saying that this year's classes, it looks like there's going to be a massive, massive separation from those 3 and everybody else in this year's recruiting cycle. And I'm talking about this year's recruiting cycle in only the scope of this year's recruiting cycle. We're going to talk about recent commitments here in a little bit, but the first thing I want to do is talk about this transfer portal. And then we're going to talk about one player in specific that's in the transfer portal. I'm sure a lot of you guys know exactly who I'm talking about. This is why I'm flying through the subjects, is because I got a lot more subjects than I normally do. So just bear with me with a lot of this stuff. So we're going to talk about the top uncommitted players. And most of these guys essentially have entered the portal since the spring. I'm going to skip number 1 because that's the guy I'm going to talk about. So you definitely know who I'm talking about now. Jordan Hudson from TCU is in the portal. He's going to be a very good get for anybody who is going to look for a solid wide receiver 2 or 3, build depth there, because I think his goal here, Jordan Hudson's, is to really be able to help a room in one aspect as far as building depth, but also level up the program and level up the coaching. That seems like that's the target for him. Another player that's going to be here is Emmanuel Pregnan. He's going to go under the radar, probably the only podcast or the only time I'm going to even mention him. We'll see if he commits soon. But he's an interior offensive lineman and one of the best interior offensive linemen in the G5 last year at Wyoming. He's going to upgrade to a Power 5 level. He's entering the portal now because he knows that after spring ball, there are going to be teams, though the interior is not Ohio State. I'm going to use Ohio State as an example, like Ohio State's looking. They're looking for starting caliber offensive linemen, and those are not easy to come by right now. I mean, starting caliber anything, it's not going to be easy to come by at this point in the cycle for the transfer portal. So he's not getting pushed out. He's wanting to upgrade, and that's what it seems like. Varkey's Gums, tight end, North Texas, everywhere for them. He's going to be a really good player. Liberty has a couple of players. They have, their safety, Robert Rahimi, I think is his name. And then they also have a running back that's also in the portal, and he's also going to be a really good player as well. I think his name was Brown. I can't remember for sure. The tackle I was talking about from A&M, he was playing center last year, and he was freshman All-SEC. It was Matthew Wyckoff. Just playing out of position. And Steve Adazio, Steve Adazio really just wanted to get his best 5 out there. That's a Steve Adazio type of mentality. And sure enough, Matthew Wyckoff was one of the top 5 last year, and he's going to come in and he's going to make an immediate impact wherever he goes. But that's a guy that nobody's really going to talk about. Dominic Blaylock is a familiar name that's in the portal, by the way, for Georgia. Chance Nolan, a quarterback for Oregon State. And then we're also going to look at a couple of other familiar names, like a Marquez Dortch, Mississippi State. Mississippi State's complete skill position roster has gotten gutted. Gary Bryant Jr. is in the portal, wide receiver from USC. And then finally, Cameron Johnson is a guy at tackle who can immediately make an impact. Just wanted to list a few of those names. And the number 1 name is Bear Alexander, who we're going to talk about. I'm not going to be surprised if Bear Alexander ends up at a very tier 2 Big 12, Pac-12 school, because I don't know. I just don't know if a lot of these upper tier schools are going to see the talent of Bear Alexander and make a move on him, considering all this drama that's come out. He's a concern in the locker room. He's not getting along with coaches or teammates, and it was kind of more like a Kirby Smart saying, all right, get out of here, leave, fine, see if you can do better elsewhere. Which is funny because a lot of people projected him to be a starter, a significant player on this defense. But that's how confident Kirby Smart is in his recruiting, his development here. Bear Alexander is a classic example and a classic reason for why the transfer portal is actually leveraged well for coaches. If you have a problem, you can tell them, all right, go hit that portal. and see where you can, go and try to beat us at some other point. There's a reason why it happened after spring. All through winter workouts, all through spring ball, he was a concern in the locker room and with his teammates, wasn't getting along with anybody. And they wanted to get rid of him, essentially. They wanted to say, you know what? He's not fit. Let's get him out of here. And that's what they're doing. So who is he going to go to? I have no idea. You could see somewhere like a Texas Tech. You could see somewhere like Arizona State, Colorado. Does Dion want to take a waiver on him? We'll see, man. I mean, he's from Texas. So we'll see what ends up happening with him. He can't go to an SEC school. I doubt he's going to go to a Big Ten school. It's sounding a lot like Big 12, Pac-12. Wisconsin has stud wide receivers, according to Phil Longo. You talk about Wisconsin's wide receiver group. First off, I just want to make mention of the fact that I'm not that surprised. I thought they had some sort of skill, but they just did not open up their offense at all. You look at a guy like Shamir DK, Skylar Bell, both back. They bring in CJ Williams. They have Bryson Green, Will Paulding. They have Keontae Lewis. And, of course, they're going to have reliable tight ends, so you would think. They're going to open this offense up. They're going to trust in that Ches Malusi and mainly Braylon Allen 1-2 punch in the run game. And for all of you guys saying that Phil Longo's air raid out type of guy, look at how Amarian Hampton, the true freshman, was able to do last year. Look at how he was able to utilize the offense at North Carolina the last couple of years. Phil Longo knows how to run the ball now. Don't get it twisted. But he likes his receiving core. And he said, they are better than I thought they were going to be. And I'm like, yeah, Shamir DK, Skylar Bell, they weren't bad players. They were in a bad system. CJ Williams, great transfer pickup. Probably not even going to be a starter. Keontae Lewis is probably going to be starter over him. We'll see if CJ Williams can crack that starting lineup, but he's definitely going to get some run. He's definitely going to get some playing time. And I feel like a lot of people are going to look. I was one of those people that are going to say it's going to take time with this Wisconsin team. I'm starting to really think that I'm going to start buying in to this Wisconsin team being super impactful in year one. And as an Ohio State fan whose team has to go to Madison this year, yeah, I'm pretty scared about that game. Probably more so than any other game. I guess I'm nervous or anxious for the Michigan game, even still right now, just because of what's happened the last couple of years. I think that we are less likely to beat Wisconsin on the road than Michigan on the road. And no, it's not because of the environment. I'm going to tell you this. Camp Randall is the most overrated home field advantage ever because it's not really a home field advantage. Everybody brings up jump around, and while it's cool, while it gets loud, guess what it does? It hypes up the away team. So thank you, Wisconsin's fans, for the jump around that hyped up Ohio State's comeback victory to beat Wisconsin in double overtime last time we were up there in 2016. Just a little bit of a trigger there for the Wisconsin fans, but I complimented your team. You can at least give me that. All right, recent commitments in recruiting. We got a lot to go through. I'm not going to go through everything I missed because I've missed like the last 2 weeks, and there has been an active recruiting trail. So we're going to start with just the significant recruits, the significant players, the significant commitments. We're going to start here with a top 300 kid, a Braden Lee, South Carolina. Cornerback, just stay with the South Carolina's hot on the trail because they also picked up a guy in Kelvin Hunter, safety out of Florence. They are on fire, a top 300 kid, borderline top 200, number 16 safety in America from West Florence. As I said, he could put on some weight, but overall, those are two massive recruits, and they like the tackle that they're bringing in, a big 6'6", 325 Mike Williams, a Maryland kid. South Carolina is hot on the recruiting trail, and I believe they are in the top 8 in recruiting. They might be ranked number 6. I can't remember for sure. Speaking of on fire in the recruiting trail, recently we've had commitments by Quentin Martin and Donovan Harbor. Now, Quentin Martin is a borderline 5-star, just a couple of spots short of 5-star. He's an athlete, probably going to be a wide receiver if I had to guess, but we'll see how that ends up going. But Donovan Harbor, an interior offensive lineman, he's a 310, a heavy 310, but an athletic one nonetheless. He's one of the best interiors in this entire class, a top 10 interior offensive lineman for sure. He's going to be fun to watch in the future. And so, by the way, will Quentin be very fun to watch. 5-star kid Landon Thomas flipped from Georgia to Florida State. I'm not necessarily breaking news. That was a big deal when it happened. So there you go with Landon Thomas. But that's concerning for Georgia. A huge part of the reason why Ohio State's number 1 and Georgia's number 2 in the recruiting cycle is because of Landon Thomas. Moving on to the next big-time commitment, we have Blake Frazier, offensive tackle going to Michigan, and they were able to rack up another big-time commitment on the offensive line. Now, nobody's ever going to look at Michigan and be like, okay, I get you got a good offensive line, but how about them wide receivers? I'm not going to do that because I love what Michigan is doing on the trail. I don't love it as a fan, but I love it from a principal perspective, seeing how you get Jordan Marshall, seeing how you're building this offensive line, and seeing, by the way, how part of what you are building is a bunch of Ohio State rejects. And I don't say that to be derogatory. I say that to be like, look, they're going to build the chip on these kids' shoulders. And in a couple of years, Michigan's going to have a team that hates Ohio State more than Ohio State hates Michigan. And that's scary because I feel like I hate Michigan more than any Michigan fan. So even though I just said Michigan, I'm professional. Rico Scott, wide receiver, Alabama. He's 4-star, a low 4-star kid, though. He might be a developmental type of thing. I'm not really sure. I look at these wide receivers, and it seems like Alabama is really going all in for Micah Hudson, who's the number 2 wide receiver. And after Mylan Graham committed, I really don't think Ohio State's going to get Micah Hudson when early on it looked like it. And they have Perry Thompson. So you can't be concerned about the wide receiver recruiting. They clearly like this kid from Pittsburgh. And so, yeah, I mean, good on them. BJ Gibson, an athlete going to Florida State. Florida State's, again, hot on the trail right now. Ohio State picks up Sam Williams-Dixon. And the reason why I bring that up, even though it's a 3-star, I bring it up just to say this. He's going to a local high school pretty near me. I plan to go see him a time or two. I'll have stuff written down in the trusty notebook about what I can see in person with him and every snap type of thing in person. He's listed as an athlete. He's mainly a running back. He transferred from Amish country at West Holmes to Pickerington North in Ohio. It'll be a lot easier to go in and see him play. So that's all I got when it comes to the recruiting. And that means that's all I got for today. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Like I said, check out Loudmouth CFB, Loudmouth Weekly. Of course, Cam's making some comments here. They improved. Talking about Ohio State, they improved a lot last year. I'm a hater and will say the defense improved. They did. That's just ignorant Michigan fans saying that they didn't improve. And finally, Ohio State recruits offensive line really well, though. I'm going to tell you this, though. They haven't recruited the offensive line as well down the stretch under Greg Studwara. Gosh, I've never been able to get that name right. Stud. That's what we call him. That's what us locals call our old Ohio State offensive line coach is Stud. Stud just had an old way to him that was unappealing, and recruiting wasn't great. But now they're starting to get it back with guys like Ian Moore and Mark Navi. I'm excited to see what the future holds for those kids. But like I said, like and subscribe. Check out the main channel, Loudmouth Sports. You see a lot of stuff over there, Loudmouth CFB, Loudmouth Weekly, and whatever else those guys decide to put on the channel. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And for the rest of you, have a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you guys next time. Mock draft coming next week.
Here's Edwards with the lead. Donovan Edwards down the sideline. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown, Michigan. The dive.
The play action. Bennett looks down the middle. McConkey's wide open. Touchdown, Dogs.